Chief National Security Correspondent Jim Sciutto. He's here with the very latest. Jim?
Well, I think you could say today we saw the full yin and yang of the U.S. policy response to the crisis in Crimea. Today, on the tougher side, you have Secretary of Defense Chuck Hagel demonstrating the U.S. commitment to its NATO allies with the deployment of some aircraft and the cancellation of NATO contacts with Russia. On the diplomatic side, we saw the opening of a diplomatic path to solving the crisis, the so-called off-ramp U.S. officials have mentioned before. Still undefined, Kerry said, but a start. U.S. and Russian diplomats face-to-face for the first time since the start of the crisis in Crimea. Secretary of State John Kerry said they are now negotiating a diplomatic path to ending it.
We are committed to working with Russia and together with our friends and allies in an effort to provide a way for this entire situation to find the road to de-escalation.
Russian and Ukrainian officials, however, did not meet.
Thank you. Why didn't you meet Lavrov today?
But as the diplomats talk or don't talk, on the ground, tensions are boiling over. Today, UN envoy Robert Seri attacked by an armed mob as he attempted to visit Crimea. Russia, Russia, they chanted. Seri was forced to take refuge in a cafe
Please come as soon as possible now.
as militia blockaded him inside.
And when I left, my car was blocked, and somebody who did not identify himself was telling me that he had orders to bring me immediately to the airport. I refused.
6 days into the crisis, U.S. lawmakers are now asking why the administration didn't see Russian military intervention coming.
The fact is, Mr. Secretary, it was not predicted by our intelligence, and that's already been well known, which is another massive failure because of our misreading, total misreading of the intentions of Vladimir Putin.
Early last week, we were well aware of the threats. When I was in NATO, again, there was a meeting specifically about the threat. So this wasn't sudden or new.
CNN has learned that the CIA's assessment of the situation included a number of possible scenarios, including Russia ordering troops off bases in Crimea and into sovereign Ukrainian territory, as well as mobilizing ethnic Russian civilian militias. Congressman Adam Schiff, who is a member of the House Intel Committee, read the assessments, disputes that the intelligence agencies failed.
They did lay out a series of scenarios that might take place. What did take place was certainly one of those scenarios. But whether they should have seen it in advance, I think, will only depend on whether, in fact, that decision was made enough in advance that the intelligence community could pick up the clues.
Now, intelligence assessments like the ones regarding Ukraine and Crimea are rarely definitive. You'll find that they are not perfect. They rely on the best information possible, but are invariably incomplete. And the one wild card, speaking to a number of officials, Wolf, is Vladimir Putin. Many of them saying that this, in their view, was a snap judgment by him, so very difficult for them to have predicted.
But the chairman of the House Intelligence Committee, Mike Ryan, he wants a full-scale investigation now to learn lessons to see if there were intelligence failures.
No question. And you and I were here. We were talking about this last week. We heard this consistently from U.S. officials. It was their assessment last week, up until really those final days, final hours, that Russia was not going to going across that border in numbers.
Yeah, it reminds me of the intelligence failure leading up to the Iraqi invasion of Kuwait back in 1990, when the intelligence estimate was the Iraqis would threaten the border a little bit, but wouldn't move into a fellow Arab country. Of course, we know Operation Desert Shield and Operation Desert Storm resulted as a result of what the Iraqis did then. There was an intelligence failure. See what happens in this particular case.
One in unfortunately, a relatively long list.
Yeah. All right. Thanks very much, Jim Sciutto, for that report. Jim will be